What's up, everybody? My name is Fitz. I am the host of the Let's Argue podcast. And tonight, what I'm doing is I'm giving people the opportunity to come up and give their perspective on a recent video that I did last week with my co-host Ty. We were talking about politics, specifically Donald Trump, and how he might be a better option for Black people in the 2024 election. I'll lay my argument out in the beginning. I'll lay my argument down in the beginning, and then if people come up, I'll re-explain it in tidbits. But here's where I stand, and here's what we were primarily talking about on Friday when we did this live. 89 to 94% of Black people vote Democrat, and it's been like that for decades. And there's not another demographic really that comes out and supports a political party in the United States in droves like Black people do with Democrats. And we don't really get the support from them, or we don't get what we should probably get for that much support for our vote. So that's kind of where my argument stemmed from. And it looks like we have someone that wants to come up. All right. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. Just to give the people a little background, C. Dot here, he had commented on the original video, and he wanted to kind of get on live and I guess dispute some of the things that we said in the original video. So, made it happen so that there's opportunity to hear different perspectives. So what was it in the original video that you disagreed with?
Um, I disagree with much of it. In particular, it was a few things that I caught throughout about the 40 minutes of video that I watched. One, I heard you say something about you heard that a Democrat, or you remembered that a Democrat had taken the vaccine, or no, you said that they weren't going to take the vaccine because Trump had something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to dispute that because that's not quite factual. I was kind of worried about the fact that you guys didn't really talk about policies at all. You didn't really bring up any policies from the Republican aspect that would be beneficial to Black people in particular. Just to give you, I guess briefs.
Can I address the first thing that you said
Go
about
ahead.
someone saying that they wouldn't take the vaccine because of Trump? Do you know which politician that I was talking about?
No, you didn't. You didn't name any particular politician.
So then how can you dispute it if you don't know the specifics? Like, how can you say that there was no Democrat that said that?
Well, because for one, Trump wasn't endorsing the vaccine in the beginning. He was actually telling people to take chlorophyll in order to cure themselves, or things of that nature. That was actually his first response
But
to
someone could
the
still say that they
coronavirus. It wasn't. I'm
someone
sorry. Say again?
someone can still say that they weren't going to take the vaccine if Trump told them to, even if he wasn't pushing
Mhm.
it heavily in the beginning.
Right, but he was pushing something that had absolutely nothing to do with the virus itself. So the issue, I believe that initially the issue was that Trump didn't know what he was talking to, and he wasn't listening. I mean, what he was talking about, and he wasn't listening to his advisors. So that was the issue initially with Donald Trump when the whole virus came out. Because he was very much so against a vaccine, and what he was actually against even acknowledging that the coronavirus existed in the beginning. I remember that for sure. Like, it's several news clips that easily we can find on YouTube that displayed that fact.
Well,
Because, like I said, I remember.
can
Go
I
ahead.
show
Sorry.
you the can I show you the video that I was referring to when I said there was a Democrat that was saying pretty much if Trump was telling them that take the vaccine, they wouldn't do it. I'm gonna I'm gonna
Okay.
present, I'm gonna present that video just so that there's context
Okay.
because that definitely did happen.
Okay.
So here's where we're at with it right here. And it was the vice president, the current vice president, who was saying that. So let's see what she has to say after the ads.
No problem.
Okay.
For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Okay, so right there.
Mm-hmm.
What can you see how somebody watching that can say, okay, so you're saying pretty much if Trump says take it, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna take, like, can you see where that makes it seem like if it's a Republican supporting the vaccine,
No.
you can't see that?
No,
So
I didn't get that. That wasn't the context that I got from what she said. I understand what she's saying
what did she
because
say?
initially, before that went down, before that was a presidential debate, vice presidential debate. So that was way, not I won't say way after. I'll say at least a year and a half after Trump had told people to take chlorophyll. So I wouldn't listen to Donald Trump either. I would listen to the doctors who specialize in this. And that's exactly what she was saying, is
Well,
that I wouldn't listen to the president. I would listen to the doctors who are advising him, which would be the smart thing to do. Do you agree or
that doesn't
disagree?
make sense because to say that, well, I'm not going to take a vaccine if Trump says to take it. Trump isn't developing the vaccine. Trump, like that doesn't make
Right. So why
sense.
would Trump tell you? Why would Trump
For
have to
the,
tell you to take the vaccine?
for the same reason
Is the problem?
For the same reason Joe Biden said when there is a hurricane in a hurricane in Texas, make sure you get vaccinated. The whole Democrat Party has been telling people to get vaccinated. They were locking people down and telling them what to do if they didn't get vaccinated. So it's okay when they tell people to get vaccinated. But if Trump comes out and he's not saying, here, I did the research, go get vaccinated. He's saying, of course, go get vaccinated because the doctors that are still the same doctors that were working on it under Biden, they say to go take it. He's not, of course, saying, I developed it, go take it. So for her to say, if he says to go take it, I'm not taking it. I took that as if he wins the election and he starts saying, go take the vaccine, that she's not going to take it and that other people that support her shouldn't take it.
And that's what you took from that, even though she broke it down for you by saying, if the doctors say that is what I should do, then I will follow that advice from the doctors. I'm not listening to Donald Trump.
And
Like, she specifically said that. She made that very clear. So it's kind of disingenuous for you to try to force it like, oh no, she's saying if Donald Trump tells you that, like, no, she's telling you that you should listen to the medical professionals and not the guy who told you to take chlorophyll for for whatever reason that he decided to say that, because doctors didn't advise people to do the same thing. It was actually news conferences where it was, I'm sorry, news channels that were telling people, like, do not do what the president is suggesting. That actually happened in real time. So for her to say what she said make perfect sense, because Donald Trump has already told people to try something that just wasn't logical or from the medical experts advice. So what she said made perfect sense. I don't know how that can be changed into.
So let's take that logic. Let's say the doctor said to take it, and Donald Trump says to take it, right?
Which happened, which
Which,
ended up happening.
right, that happened.
Uh-huh.
So can you see why someone that says, okay, she's saying don't listen to Trump on this, but he's saying take it now. So
Because now he's starting, because he eventually decided, as soon as he could put his name or to say that he was responsible for rushing it there, which he eventually took credit for. Initially, he didn't take credit for rushing it in. Then he wanted to take credit afterwards and say, yeah, I rushed this in. So yeah, everybody needs to take it. But if you remember, like I remember, because I actually paid close attention to politics. So I remember when Donald Trump was telling people like, no, we shouldn't trust Dr. Fauci. No, we shouldn't trust medical professionals, even on his staff, that were advising people to take the vaccine. So I'm just curious to exactly like which part of Donald Trump are you agreeing with, the pre-vaccine or the after vaccine?
So we'll break down the whole chlorophyll thing, or the chlorine or the bleach. I took that as a joke. I don't think that any rational person, I know that there are people online, but that could get over. Yeah, I took that as a
from
joke.
The president of the United States of America, the most important, supposedly the most important person in our government. You think that that would have been a good joke to make about something that
I didn't say it
serious?
was a good joke. I just said that it seemed like he was joking, in the same way that that Joe Biden went on the Breakfast Club and told black people if they don't vote for him, they're not really black.
On the Breakfast Club, compared to a national conference, like speaking to the nation, you're telling me that you can't tell the difference between those two, a radio conversation and speaking to the actual country? You can't tell that that's on different levels, brother? Like,
no, well,
it's substantially different levels.
Black culture, a lot of black culture is centered around radio and entertainment and hip hop. So there are many black people that go to the Breakfast Club for learning about politics when political candidates come on. So no, regardless of what venue it's
But they tell jokes there, though. That's where they tell jokes at, on the radio. Charlemagne the God, all of them, they tell jokes. They make fun of situations,
right?
Things like that. But when you're talking to the nation, when you're speaking to a platform to the nation, everything is supposed to be serious. Can you speak of another president that spoke to the nation and got up there and gave us jokes in times of very serious matters?
Well, I don't know every speech that every president ever gave, but what I do know is that regardless of the venue you're talking about black people in, it's not appropriate to tell them that they're not really black if they don't vote for you, especially when
okay. So now you're moving the goalposts with that one, because we were talking about a vaccine, and now you want to move it to the conversation he had with Charlemagne that you admitted was a joking conversation. So if you admitted initially that, I'm sorry.
I said that what Donald Trump said about bleach was a joke, but I never
said.
But
you compared it. You compared that to Joe Biden in the conversation he had with Charlemagne, which you said was a jokingly manner. So if it was jokingly and you understood it as a joke, then why would you take it seriously now?
I didn't understand it as a joke. I really believe that many Democrats, black or white, believe that if you don't vote for Democrats when you're
that's not what he said. He didn't say if you don't vote. He said if you can't tell the difference between me and Trump, then you're not black. That was what he said. He didn't say if you don't vote for me, then you're not black.
Whether he said that or not, how is your blackness tied to whether you can tell the difference between him or Joe Biden, or him or Trump?
I don't agree. I don't necessarily agree with the term, but I don't necessarily agree with him using the term, but I also wouldn't. I don't want to misquote what he said, and I actually can determine that conversation was based on them having a jokingly back and forth conversation. It wasn't really a serious conversation. That's why Breakfast Club and things of that nature aren't the places to really have real serious conversations, because
Okay, so
number one, they're not a political platform.
let's get into that, because why is Joe
Mhm.
Biden even on there having political conversations instead of addressing the Black community, which we come out and give 89 to 94% of our vote to? Why is that the platform that he chooses to address us on? It shows that they don't really take us seriously. It shows that
Mhm.
they go to
Well,
the Breakfast Club, an entertainment hub, to get to
okay.
us.
Okay, so which Republican? Because that's what I really wanted to get into. I wanted to know exactly where you're coming from as with a Republican standpoint. Because I don't really, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not coming from a Democratic standpoint. I'm pro-Black and I'm Pan-African. So most of my concerns, the vast majority of my concerns, are all dealing with Black people. So, as far as the Republicans go,
Mhm.
I want you to give me a real valid reason. Like, as a Republican, do you consider yourself a Republican or a conservative?
I consider myself an independent, and
Hmm.
it's a great question, because I think many people will get it mistaken and think I'm a Republican. Here's pretty much the breakdown of where I'm coming from. We give the Democrat Party 89 to 94% of the vote, and they do little to nothing for us. So I hold them more accountable than I hold the Republican Party, because they're getting a majority of our vote. So they should be doing something for us. And so when I say go vote Republican, what I'm really saying is show them that they don't own us. Show them that
Okay.
we can go over here and vote. You don't control us. We don't need you.
Mhm.
90% of the issues in our community we can fix ourselves. The other 10%, politics can help us get there. But we're not going to sit here and deal with the drumming up racism and police shootings because it's closer to the election. We're not going to sit there and be on the back burner if we're giving you 94% of our vote. So that's why I'm saying go vote Republican, not because I'm praising their policies, but just as a power move to show you don't control us, you don't own us, and we can vote for them just to despise you, like just to show you
Okay.
that, we have that power. So that's where I'm coming
Okay.
from, Republican.
So do you pay attention to a lot of conservative or Republican policies that actually negatively affect Black people?
Can you define pay attention? Because I dibble
Yeah.
and dabble, and I'm well versed.
Okay. Okay. The so-called attack on CRT. How do you feel about that?
Critical race theory. So I actually studied critical race theory in college. I have a master's in sociology, and I can understand from a Republican perspective why they wouldn't want critical race theory in schools, because oftentimes critical race theory at an below like a college level can get misconstrued very quickly when you're dealing with minds like high school, middle school, whatever grade they're teaching it in. When your teachers are mainly white women that are teaching this stuff, and they're getting pressure from social media, some of those topics can be misconstrued. And so I can see why they wouldn't want it taught at a certain level. But ultimately, I think it's up to the parents of whatever community we're talking about to decide that.
Okay. All right. Well, are you aware of the fact that they're actually including a lot of Black history into so-called CRT?
I
Are you
think
aware of like states like Texas and Tennessee and Florida, they're actually removing Black history from the curriculum?
I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that,
Okay.
with them removing Black history from the curriculum, because I don't think it's the government's job to teach Black people about our history. We should not put that type of control in the government's hands. So when they
So hold on, pause 1 second. I'm sorry. So it's okay. So is it okay to learn so no history should be taught in school at all, or are you just saying we shouldn't be teaching Black history in school?
What I'm saying is whatever history they taught, whether it's in Texas and they're teaching Texas history or United States history, I don't have really a deep opinion on that. I'm talking about Black history. It can become very dangerous because is there a standard curriculum for Black history? I know when I was taught Black history in school, I knew nothing about what really happened in the United States. It was a watered down white version of Black history. And so I think that if we're really going to teach Black history, we have to put it on Black parents to teach their children about Black history and put it on the community. That's something that the Black church.
So it shouldn't be taught. So even with Black people paying taxes in this country, we still shouldn't like. So basically, everything I'm getting from you is that Black people should be figuring out everything on their own, right?
Yeah,
And
if you're a parent,
also,
would agree with
but
that.
also, you should be doing it individually, right? No unification of Black people is involved in this. Should it be any kind of unification involved with this, or is it just each individual needs to individually think about their own, and that's it? Like, what is your thought process on that?
My thought process is that just because I don't want the government to teach it doesn't mean that I don't believe in unification. I think that on an individual level, you should strive to learn more about your history. But on a community level, we should not want that in the power or in the hands of people who can also decide, who are not within the Black community, what Black history should and should not be taught. I think it's a lazy approach.
Okay. The problem I'm having with this is you're okay with history in general, but you don't want Black history a part of that history being taught in school, because we're talking about public school. We're not talking about privatized anything. We're talking about actual public school for the normal Black family, middle class, all of that type of stuff. So we're talking about people who have to go to work, who have to send their kids to school in order for, in most cases, in order for another form of childcare. So are we saying that, like, at what point does the parent in that situation have to actually sit down and teach another class outside of what the school is teaching?
So that's a great question. And I'm not saying that the expectation is for the parent to directly teach them as they would get from a curriculum. What I'm saying is, on a community level, we can pay people who are in the Black community outside of school to do those. We have online learning. There are so many platforms that could be used to teach Black youth and Black people in general about.
So that's a separate, but that would be a separate curriculum, right? So you're talking about going to public school, and then also on top of that, having a separate curriculum strictly teaching you about Black history.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
The Asian community somehow, and other groups that come here, somehow know about their history, and it's not taught in school. It's because on a community level, they take the time out to teach them about their history. And I think Black people are capable of doing that as well.
That they teach about their history in this country?
No, they not even in this country. They teach them about history of their motherland. They know about their motherland. But what I'm saying,
right, and that's not possible for most Black Americans, right?
Well, let's talk about maybe not the motherland, but you're saying the United States, our history within the United States. Let me ask.
Right. Because I would speak on the same terms as far as Chinese Americans, as far as Latino Americans, like anybody who has a history in this country. Not only white and Black people are the only two people in this country. Like, it's a history of different cultures in this country who actually built the majority of this country. So, like, where do the classes come from? Number one. And also, actually, I want to go back. Let's go back to the whole the entire idea about the CRT in the first place. Okay, let's go back to the Black history, and let's talk about the other things that what are some of the things that you feel like Black people are mostly affected by in this country, and how do you feel like we'll be able to turn that around, other than voting Republican for the time being?
Okay, so the major thing that I think Black people are affected by is believing that racism is what's holding them back. I think that we don't spend enough time working on personal development. I think that we give up before we've ever put the effort in to actually achieve anything. And I really think that we're a fear-based people. in the United States, and that we let our emotions dictate us instead of thinking strategically about how to get to the next level. For instance, if we don't get a job, it's automatically racism. If we didn't get into that school, it's because of racism. We didn't get a raise at our job, it's racism. But when we should be focusing on how to get that raise and the skill sets and other things that it could be, we don't make the improvements because we've already been told it's racism. So I think that
Well,
until
I'm wondering, is that something that you dealt with? Because I'm pretty black. Like I'm really, really black. You know, uh, yeah, single mother household that you know what I mean, that you guys like to speak up until I was about 15 or so. Then my mother got married. But again, I'm sorry, my mother got married again. But I'm just curious to know, like, how I'm having a hard time even addressing this, but yeah, I'm curious to know how where did your idea of that come from? Like, because I've never experienced what you're saying. Like, I've never had conflict at a job or left the job and said, oh, you know what? Oh, I got fired because of race. I've probably only been fired once in my life, once or twice maybe, but it was never me saying, oh man, it was because those people were racist, or it was typically because of something that happened or didn't happen. So I don't really necessarily hear that from a lot of the black people that's around me, blaming them. Most of the black people around me are actually working and you know doing okay for the most part. But I never hear the excuse being made is that it's just racism. I do hear policies. I do hear about a lot of government policies and things of that nature that have an effect on our everyday lifestyles. But it's rare that I hear everyday average working black people say that white people are holding them back from getting a job. So maybe your experience is different. So I wanted to just try to see where you're coming from with it, because I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm not exactly sure on what part of the country you in. It might be a little different. So I just want to kind of go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll give you a little of my background. I was born in Colorado. I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm in Texas right now. Here's where I'm coming at with that. When I was growing up, I was constantly told from within the community that white people are against you, that no matter how hard you work, you'll never be able to there'll always be the racism holding you down to the point to where you can't achieve something because there's a white person at the end of the rainbow to hold you down. These are things that I would hear within the community. These are things that I would see on the news. Everywhere I turned, it was like, well, you're black, you're a victim, you're likely going to be in prison. All of these things, that was what I grew up around. And anytime something would happen in my life, the first thing people would say is, oh, it's probably because you're black. Oh, you went to that interview and you didn't get the job. It's probably because you're black, right? So that was my experience growing up. But as far as what led me down to thinking the way I think about issues within the black community is, I realized that when I was in college and we'd be having discussions and politics would get brought up, or why are things the way they are, it always centered around, well, there's discrimination and racism, so that's why there's this many black people in prison, or that's why this many black people don't have a job. It always was centered around things that black people couldn't control, or like an individual can't control. And I never adhered to that perspective or philosophy. I always personally believed I could do whatever I wanted, regardless of whether I'm black or not. And it was actually people in my class try to make me a victim. They would tell me I was a victim. Like, no, you're a victim. You're black. You're going to face this, this, and this. And it'd be like, I can do whatever I want. So it was other people that tried to make me a victim, even though I didn't see myself as a victim, that eventually led me down this path.
Right. So those people, were they family members or just friends of yours, or were they just random passerbyers? Like, where were they in your life?
So these were not, it didn't really come from family members in terms of like my mom and dad or close family, but there'd be extended family. Like I come from a mixed family, like my extended family, some are white, some are Hispanic. So they would say certain things. And then when you get online or you're just here in the barber shop, or, you know, there's a shooting, really it would happen around these large issues like the Trayvon Martin shooting or Tamir Rice, really when there's like an uptick in the media pushing certain things, that's when you would hear people's perspective of why the world is the way it is. And they would extrapolate and say, well, this is why, see, I can't do this because I'm black. And look, they got shot and killed. So that means all these other things are holding black people back. So it's a mixture.
Okay. So do you think those just those two in particular, Tamir Rice and and Trayvon Martin, do you think those were do you feel like those were justified, or do you feel like people, it shouldn't have been that big of a deal? Like, how do you feel about it?
So when we say justified, it's a weird word because one of them with
Well,
Trayvon
just to you, not as far as, I'm not pertaining to the justice system. I'm talking about as far as what you know of both situations, what you've heard of it, how much research you've done on it. What was your outcome? What was your conclusion?
My perspective was different on the Tamir Rice versus the Trayvon Martin. With Tamir Rice, the way it's presented to the public was that the police just showed up and wanted to kill a black boy. And I try to look at it like, okay, what else could it be besides that? And then it's like, okay, he has a toy gun. They're not necessary. They're getting calls apparently about this. I don't know that they just showed up wanting to kill a black person. That was what I took away from it. But when I say that to people, they say, you're a sellout. You're just agreeing with white people. And that's really what made me start to think that we have a victim mentality, is because whenever I would try to think logically or critically about something, it would be that I'm against black people, when I'm just saying, if it were me and I were pulling up to a situation and it looks like somebody has a gun, even though it's a toy gun, I might respond in a similar way.
You're going to shoot first and not ask any questions at all with a 11-year-old, I'm sorry, 11-year-old boy. You're not going to, go into detail about anything. You're not going to say, hey, stop, drop the gun. You're just going to go in and start shooting. And you think that, like, morally to you, if you shot an 11-year-old for holding a toy gun, you feel like you will be able to, like, deal with yourself in the future after that?
Well, I think
Morally?
it depends on the intent. If I showed up to kill an 11-year-old boy, which I wouldn't do, whether they were white, black, whatever, no, I probably couldn't live with myself if that's what my intention was. But if I showed up to a situation where I was fearful because I think somebody has a real gun and I ended up shooting them and taking their life, I would feel guilty after the fact because I found out it was a toy gun and I was wrong. But I wouldn't say I'm a monster, because to me, it depends on the intent. And that's where I think I differ from people, is because I'm willing to say, I don't know what that cop's intent was. I just know what happened. And then I try to put myself in the situation and say,
Well, I don't think a lot of black people are bothered by the intent of the officer. I don't think most black people are concerned with the intent necessarily of the officer when he got there. It was the fact that it was not protocol. Number one, you weren't being shot at. It wasn't reported that the kid had shot anybody or at anyone. So
so if someone's pointing a gun at
initially,
me,
your
that's not
report,
a problem.
it wasn't reported that he pointed a gun at the officer. That's what I'm saying. Like, it was nobody that said that the little boy pointed a gun at anybody. They said that it was reported that it was somebody outside with a gun. So when the officer arrives, typically you want to see what's going on with a situation. Um, I don't think that it's protocol for you to go in and immediately start shooting because you see a gun. You initially tell people to put the gun down.
Mhm.
You give warning. You go about it in the appropriate manner that you are trained to go about it in. And I'm sure that they don't train police officers to go in and shoot as soon as they see a gun. So that's why it's a difference for me, because I understand, with my mother being in law enforcement for 25, 30 years or so. I know that it's not the protocol for a police officer to just come in shooting guns ablazing. So that was the number one problem for me as a black person,
So
is
why do you
that,
think he did it?
I'm sorry, say again.
Why do you think he did it? Why do you think
I
the
can't. To me, it doesn't matter. It was done, and I think that justice should have been served based on that. Mistake or not a mistake. If I was to make a mistake like that, justice would be served. I would be in prison for shooting someone
But I want to go
unjustified.
back to that because you're saying the intent doesn't matter. But even within the justice system, as I'm sure you're aware, intent does matter.
Only for police.
No, there.
The only time they consider intent is for police officers. Other than that, they don't really care what your intent was. They care about the fact that somebody lost their life.
So if I'm driving a car and I have a heart attack and pass out and I end up hitting somebody, you're saying that I'll get punished the same as if I got in the car, drove it on or turned it on and purposely ran into people and let the world know, hey, I wanted to do this. You're saying that those are the same thing.
No, sir, I'm not. I don't even know. That's like a totally different example.
No, that
So
has
what
to
I'm
do with
saying is, if you kill someone, okay, if you mistakenly see somebody in the street, okay, we're going to compare those
Mhm.
similar type of situations to another situation similar to it.
Yeah.
If I see someone in the street and I think they have a gun, and I just shoot that person because I think they have a gun, I'm going to go to jail regardless of my intent. I can go and tell the judge, hey, I saw him, he had a gun. That's not a reason for me to shoot and kill that individual. So I would still have to deal with the justice system based on that mistake that I made, regardless of my intent. My intent could have been, oh, I thought I was going to be saving everybody because I saw a guy with a gun. My intent was pure to
Mhm.
me, but for that other person who now lost their life, it's a totally different aspect. So that's why I say you have to compare apples to apples. You can't really compare apples to
Then you
oranges.
compare
You
apples to
have to compare the same type of situation.
because in your situation, you said you just saw somebody random and you thought they had a gun, but you're not comparing apples to apples where you're showing up to a situation and you see somebody who they have what looks like a gun
That's what I
and
just said.
no,
I just that was my same comparison. I see somebody who looks like they have a gun, and I shoot that person because I think I'm fearful. So
no,
because I'm fearful that that person has a gun, even though that person hasn't taken a shot at anyone, that person hasn't threatened anyone in particular with this gun. We just know that this person has a gun. So
right.
with that being said, if I only know that this person has a gun, I haven't seen them commit any crimes with this gun. Basically, I don't even know that this is an 11-year-old. I'll give you that. Say it was a grown up.
Mhm.
If that grown up is allowed to have a gun,
So if
why would I
somebody
go
showed
in
up to
and
your
shoot
house
them
with a
first?
toy gun, you'd sit there and be like, "Oh, let me see. Is that a toy gun? Is that a real gun?"
No,
But
no, not if somebody shows up to my house. Because think about this: the police showed up where he was, not the other way around. He didn't go to the police and say, "Hey, I got a gun. I'm finna point it at you. I'm finna play with you. Whatever, whatever."
like,
That
if
wasn't the
you're walking out
situation.
in public,
It was a it, huh?
if you're in public with your family or just you, and
And
someone,
I have my gun. I am in a Pro 2A state. I am a gun owner.
let's
I
take
own
your gun out of it.
several guns.
Let's take your gun
So
out of it, and let's just
with
focus.
that being said, No, I'm saying with that being said, with me in a are you pro 2A? Pro Second Amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm out and about and say my gun is exposed, mistakenly so, because it never is, but say mistakenly so my gun is exposed, and
Mhm.
someone sees that I have a gun, due to their fear, whatever internalized fear that they have for me or whatever the situation may be, they decide to shoot me just based on the fact that I have a gun. Not that I've shot it at anyone, not that I've threatened anyone, not that I've harmed anyone. Just based on the fact that I have a gun is against my Second Amendment right. Would you not agree?
That's different than what actually happened because it wasn't in a holster. It wasn't like, oh, he just has a gun
Regard,
holding.
if I took my gun out the holster,
Yeah,
should I be shot
if you
because
were
I took my gun out of the holster?
if you were holding the gun, in which I want to
Mhm.
make it clear right now, I'm not saying he should have been shot. I'm simply saying the way that it was reported was that these
Mhm.
cops showed up to work today to kill a black person.
I didn't. That's not. I never got a report like that. I never
Not,
saw a report
not
like that. I
you.
saw reports of what actually happened. An 11-year-old with a toy gun was at the park.
Mhm.
Someone called the police and said someone is at the park with a gun. The police showed up and immediately started shooting. They didn't say stop, hold on, get on the ground, drop the gun. None of that. He started shooting.
And what is
So
it that you think I'm arguing? Just to
I,
be
I'm trying to figure out exactly what you're arguing. That's the purpose of the conversation, because I'm trying to understand exactly why you have the feelings you have towards other black people. Now, I heard you call it accountability, but
Mhm.
typically self accountability is self accountability. That would be you being worried about the accountability of yourself. You making sure that you are the most upstanding individual that you can be for your community. That is what self accountability is. But
Mhm.
for people, for what, well, I'm not even going to categorize you, but from what you've been saying, it sounds like you're more so focused on what everyone else is doing and not what you can be putting forth to the community in order to uplift or teach or grow or progress the black people that you're talking about.
Well, this is my way of doing what you just said,
Mhm.
because I know you're saying you haven't experienced it, but I have conversations with people, and this is a common theme within our community where people really believe that the reason they're not where they want to be at is because of racism. And
Okay.
my
Well,
goal with this channel is to come along and say, okay, even if racism is as bad as you're saying it is and it's holding you back, you should still give 100%, and you'd be better off that way than
mhm.
not giving 100% and just pretty much laying down and being like, it's racism. That's pretty
Mhm.
much the
Well,
whole.
well, I know of a brother named John Hope Bryant. Okay, um, he actually used to work for the Freedmen's Bank, and he is a brother that actually kind of does. He says a lot of he says what you just said just now. Okay, but he, instead of him just saying it, um, he actually teaches people. He actually shows you, different things about, banking, real estate, all these different things. He teaches you about all the terminology to be used, all of that type of stuff. Now, those are ways that you uplift a community.
Mhm.
Now, simply calling out people that, okay, number one, do you know the wage gap in this country right now between black, white, Hispanic, and such? Are you
I
aware of it at all?
don't know the exact numbers, but I know there is a wage gap.
Okay, $25,000 a year is a typical median black household um, wage. For Latinos, it's 30,000 a year. Okay, for white, for, excuse me, for white people in this country, it's about 150, between 125 and $150,000 a year. Okay,
Okay.
now when we talk about the poverty line and where poverty sits at, do you know who is the most impoverished community in this country right now
I
and
think
has been for quite a while?
Black people or Native Americans.
Yeah, it's black people. So and black people haven't had a reparations. So when we talk about the position that black people are in, when we talk about certain black people, because I also hear a lot about, I hear a lot of disdain for a lot of our educated brothers and sisters. And the reason I hear a lot of this disdain is because we have some brothers, you know what I'm saying, like yourself, that'll come in and, you know, pretty much look down upon or talk about the worst aspects of the black community. Now, for me, it's not something I necessarily do because I'm not the most educated individual. I'm mainly and mostly self-educated. Okay, so the majority of the things I know, I've actually taken the time out to go and learn myself. I go and study, I go and research. So anything I know about politics, economics, all of that, I've learned on my own. Okay, so when we have educated brothers and sisters who say things the way that you guys say things, and you kind of try to put a spotlight on the worst of the worst instead of actually reaching out to the people that are in those situations and trying to actually, you know, show them ways to come out of it. You guys would rather, you know, do things like, you know, say, hey guys, vote Republican, even though Republicans are staunchly against everything pro-black,
But
everything that black
let's pause
people.
right there,
Okay,
because
go ahead.
right there, like where you say that I'm shining a spotlight pretty much on something negative because I'm talking about Republicans, then that means the opposite, that we wouldn't even be having this conversation if I said go vote for Joe Biden. Would you agree with that?
I believe that the conversation is already being had that people are not pleased with Joe Biden. I think that
But
people
I'm
haven't been pleased with Joe Biden since he was elected as the forerunner for the Democrat Party.
but I'm
I think most. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm saying you personally, if the video would have been, if the video was not about Trump and it was originally about Joe Biden, and I was saying don't vote for Joe Biden, and I never mentioned Trump, would you have ever commented or even wanted
Yes.
to have this? You would have
Yes.
commented and said, "Hey, man, I disagree with you. Why would you ever say that?"
Yeah. I will have depending on the topic, but saying just don't vote Joe Biden, and yes, I would definitely listen. Just like I listen to most people who have a thing against the Democrat Party, because like I said, I understand and I agree, but I also understand politics and I
I
understand the
misspoke.
history of politics.
I misspoke.
And so
If I would have said go vote for Joe Biden, would you have responded?
yes.
Okay. I just want to check because it seems like although you're saying that you're Pan-African and it seems like
Mhm.
you more on the Democrat side.
I am, but there's a reason for it. The reason I'm more so on the Democrat side, because as I stated earlier, when I look at the most anti-black policies, is coming from the Republican Party, not
Besides,
only from the federal level, but also the state levels. So when I pay attention to people like George DeSantis down in Florida, who is incredibly anti-black,
how
um,
so?
make sure it's known. Well, I mean, we can go into the curriculum again. We can also go into, you know, how the black people in the state feel about them.
There's a lot of black people there, and I know the news makes it seem
Yeah.
like
So
black people are unhappy, but what I think they're not I think they are happy with is that many of their businesses didn't get shut down like they would have if they were in Democrat states during the pandemic. I think what they're happy about is their state doesn't have an income tax. There are plenty of other things where we like to focus in on what they
uh,
want us to focus in on, which is an emotional thing.
okay. Well, let's do this. Let's stay on the politics then, because I don't even want to get to the emotional stuff. Let's stay on the politics.
Okay.
Is unemployment down or up right now?
Unemployment is, I believe it, last time I checked, it was up.
It's actually down.
Where
Unemployment is down. It's further down than it was previously. You can type it in. I'm sure you're right there by the computer. I'm laying down. I don't mind you typing it in because I actually looked it up.
inflation is
Unemployment is
inflation
down.
is high.
Inflation is actually down to 3%.
Inflation is down to 3%.
Yep. The reason you're seeing high prices is corporate greed. It's not due to inflation. Check that out.
Let's see what the inflation rate is. Is that year over year or for the last quarter?
I mean, you could look it up either way. I mean, by the year or by the quarter. Either way, you'll see the decline. But politically, as far as economically, I don't see that much of a change from Donald Trump, honestly and truthfully, from Donald Trump's reign for the most part, other than all of the it's just authoritarian type of uh thing Trump had going on for himself. For me, like I like people who know what they're doing, who actually qualify for the position. I don't believe Donald Trump is qualified for his position. Joe Biden is more qualified for his position, even though I don't quite agree that Joe Biden is the person. For one, he's too old. For two, he's too moderate for me personally. But that's the difference that I believe that's in the Democrat Party that's not in the Republican Party. You don't have diversity in the Republican Party. You have that in the Democrat Party. You have real diversity. And the Republican Party is just a Trump party. It's a Trumper party. That's it.
You
In
can't.
the Democrat Party, you have a bunch of people that's in it that are all kind of scratching and fighting for who's gonna, what I'm saying, who's gonna be the next in line to do what. So you have the LGBT who far left, you got your Joe Bidens who are moderates, you got your progressives who might be your AOCs. You got your I mean it's a lot of diversity. It's also you have an actual black caucus. Those are the only people who actually participate in the black caucus. Nobody in the Republican Party does. It's just no representation in the Republican Party for black people in this country. So that's part of the reason I also don't rock with them, because it's pretty much
Representation.
for black people, like I was talking about before. Because I told you I'm pro-black and Pan-African, so I'm not necessarily a party guy. I don't care about the Democrats or the Republicans. I care about what's best for black people and the positions that black people are in order to make decisions for black people.
Let's talk about the Democrat Party's fake token Negro situations where they just put a black face there so that you feel like there's representation. But as we saw with Obama, you can't really do anything just for black people. If you look at
Tim Scott?
Tim Scott, the Republican?
Yeah, what is he?
I think he's a token Negro too. I don't think that it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is you were talking about diversity within the Democrat Party. It's fake diversity, because the moment if I ran as a Democrat saying the things that I said, it would just be considered, I would look at it as diversity of thought. If I said I'm a Democrat, but I think about these things this way, they wouldn't accept that diversity. It's only diversity on certain issues like LGBTQ and other things. Anytime that it's something specifically for black people, the only time they say that they're going to do it is when they want the vote. But then when it comes to the solution, we need to do it for all Americans. So I don't think
well, that's the thing though. But that's the thing though, that like when you say that, it kind of tells me that you kind of like not really paying attention to politics, because that's how all politics go. Number one. Number two, like I said, there is absolutely no diversity on the Republican side. So when I ask why will we vote Republican as a solution to being responded to in the Democrat Party, when like our ancestors went through the ringer to even be involved in politics again. So why will we give away the little bit of power that we did develop to, in order to go to a party that openly wants to eradicate everything black people have done?
Such as what?
I
See,
we just had a conversation about Black history, and what you said you don't care about, which is weird to me, but
that's not
it's a very important issue for me.
that's not eradicating Black history. And as a Pan-African,
How is it?
I would think that we would be on the same page with this issue, where it's not eradicating Black history.
They did.
It's them wanting to teach critical race theory and then attaching Black history to it to make it seem like it's really about Black history. It's
But
about
critical race theory is not taught in K through 12. So why is that even a conversation for people about schools, and is not taught in K through 12? We both have an understanding that it's only taught in high levels of law, and high levels of law school. So why would we even act like that's a concern
that's
when
what
the only reason it was even brought up as a talking point is because Donald Trump said something about it being taught in military school?
Why do you want white people to teach Black people about Black history? Why
Do you think white people are the only ones teaching?
Because like around 90% of teachers are white women. That's who would be teaching Black history for the most
Okay. Okay, sir. My daughters go to an all Black school. Okay. 99%, 99.9% of the teachers are Black.
Is that
Okay.
is that
So should they not be able to teach Black history because it's a state law that it cannot be taught in the school, or because books are being removed written by Martin Luther King, written about the civil rights movement? Should that be something I should have to worry about as a Black man with Black kids that go to a majority Black school?
So my understanding of what's going on with the Black history is that there's specific parts of it that they're saying should not be taught, but ultimately it's up to the parents in that area to decide what's taught in the schools. And another thing to add to that, if you really want your child to learn about Black history and the schools aren't teaching it, then what are you going to do? Are you going to say, oh, they don't know Black history? Or are you going to take accountability and say, I'll teach them, I'll pay someone to teach them?
No, I'm going to take accountability and have it being taught in the schools where I pay taxes to as an American citizen. If the white man, if anybody else can go into a school and their children be taught white history, I would like for mine to be taught also. That's the whole purpose of equality in this country, right?
So you're talking
shouldn't we all be set to the same standard? Isn't that what kind of what you stand on? Shouldn't we all be able to have the same standards of learning?
Well, I don't think that having the same standards of learning means that you're able to learn about Black history. I think that you're using a very specific example of 99% Black. That's not the majority of schools that Black children go to. A majority of schools that Black children go to, they're schools with other groups of people. So in your school, right, do you want are you concerned with your children learning about Native American history or Russian history?
Am I concerned with it?
Yeah, like, are you sitting here like they need to be learning about Russian history?
No, because I'm not Russian. I'm Black. So therefore, I want my kids to know about the Black achievements in this country. Why would I allow for all the other history to be taught and also allow them to remove the history that's already there for Black people? Why is that something that you're okay with? Is what I'm really having a hard time fathoming, because they're not talking about deleting anybody else's history. They want to take Black books out of schools. They want to attack Black history. They want to attack the civil rights movement. Some that people that my ancestors looked up to died over. Like, so I don't understand like why it's like not that big of a deal for you as a Black man. Like, I understand because I also I'm related to other races of people, but none of those other races of people would ever tell me that it's not important for me to learn about the history of the people that I come from in this country.
I never said that. I never said it wasn't important. I said that to me, the priority, I'm not going to sit here and fight for the government who we claim we don't trust. To be clear, we say the white man, the white government, but we want them to teach our children Black history. How does that make sense? But
you said your argument is for the Republicans, for us to vote Republican. So my counter argument is, why would I vote Republican if they are anti-black? If they telling me they anti-black, and you saying, well, so what? We should still vote for them anyway. Oh well, so what? I don't
No,
understand that logic. I don't get why just they're not doing anything pro-black. So what gives me a pro-black man any type of feeling towards trying to help that party at all for any reason?
because what you're doing isn't working with the Democrat Party.
How do you what that's what I'm saying? What have you seen that black people have asked for that black people were not, black people just weren't being paid attention to in the Democrat Party? What policy, what topic in particular?
Well, if you pay attention to the policies that Democrats parrot to the black community, it's mainly centered around welfare. It's mainly centered around here. We'll do
No.
We'll do.
Pause. That's false, because welfare was not even initially for black people. I don't know why that's been a Republican talking point, but
Right now.
even now because you said that like it's commercials that come on TV to say, hey, black people, get welfare now. Like
No,
this is not what happens. No politician has come to me and said, hey man, you know what, if you just stop working and move out of your house with your family, we'll cut you a nice little welfare check. Like, that doesn't happen. So I don't understand, like, the people who get welfare are typically the people who need it. So you do have a lot of cases of fraud, which I won't deny, but that happens on both ends. You have more cases of fraud from white people than you do from black people. So how is that more of a black issue than it is just a fraud issue in general? How are we making welfare a black issue?
Because if you go and look at what Joe Biden's administration says that they do for black people, much of it talks about how they're going to increase food stamps.
That's not true.
I have his fact sheet right here where he's bragging. They're bragging about, oh, well, you're going to get $36 more a month per person on food stamps. This is his fact sheet.
For people who get food. That's what I'm saying. Like, why?
No,
does he say it about black people? Did he say like this is my okay?
This is the fact where the Biden-Harris administration is talking about what they've done for black people. This is specifically them. This is all the stuff we're doing for black people that I've done for black people.
Can you put it in the back chat for me to check out? Because I'm unaware of that.
I can share it with you right now and it's in the original video as well. I can go to what I'm talking about. And this is the fact sheet from the White House, the Biden-Harris administration. We went over this in the video as well.
Advance equity and opportunity. Go back. Advance equity and opportunity for Black Americans and communities across the country. Okay, right. Got you.
And here's what I'm talking about right here. Okay. When they single out Black Americans and then include in the same sentence and communities across the country. Why not? They're trying to take credit for doing stuff for Black people, but then they're including everybody else in there and taking away the whole, we're doing this for Black people. I don't know.
Do you not see do you not see the fight Republicans have against anything that's particularly and specifically for Black people, i.e. reparations?
Here's the problem that I have. And here's why I'm not as hard on Republicans as I am on Democrats. And I said this in the original video. If Republicans were getting 94% of our vote, they would need to be held accountable. But they're not getting our vote like that. So I don't hold them to as high of a standard, because they really have no incentive to do for us, because we're not going to
go. That would be the biggest incentive. Like, that is not logical. The biggest incentive for them to want to do something for specifically Black people is because of the fact that they have such a high percentage of Black people against them. There's a reason why they have such a high percentage of Black people against them. It's because their policies have always been anti-Black.
No, what it is.
No, I'm not even going to say always. I'm going to take that back. In the past 40, 50 years, 60 years, I'm sorry, I'm going to say in the past 60 years,
What part
Republican policies have been anti-black.
didn't Bill Clinton and Joe Biden, aren't they responsible for the crime bill that has put away more black people in recent history?
Not
Like
only them.
a majority.
It was also black people who wanted the 94 crime bill.
Black people
It
want
was black people who were upset with crime, the
and
high
now
crime rates, especially out in California and New York, that were sky high due to gang banging and gang violence. I know because I'm a former gang banger. So I know when Hillary Clinton was talking about predators, she was talking about the gang bangers who were doing drive-by shootings. She wasn't talking about black people in general. So when we talk about the 94 crime bill, you also have to include all of the black people
the
who
black
were actively for it until it started affecting us negatively.
but now
Then you saw a lot of people trying to correct their tracks. That's why you saw Obama come in with the reduction of cocaine time and stuff like that. All of these things start to come in where they're actually doing things to reverse the harms for the 94 crime bill. You didn't see that with the Republicans though, because the Republicans thought that the 94 crime bill was so bad. What did they do against it when it came into play?
was
They
that
played ball. They went and bought prisons.
was that anti-black?
Was what anti-black?
When they did the 94 crime bill, was that anti-black?
The effects of it was anti-black. The cause of it was anti-crime.
And so when Republicans are saying that they want to lower crime and increase police presence, that's anti-black. But the crime bill that's
Well, what is police? Do you know that police brutality?
we can't
I'm
have
sorry.
ways because earlier when we were talking about Tamir Rice, you said intent does not matter. What matters is the result. Now you're saying, well, they didn't intend for it to be harmful to black people. It just was. So
No,
either
that's not what I didn't change that up. I told you that the intent, because it wasn't just them that did it. It was everybody at the time. It was a popular thing. It was a popular bill due to the crime that was going on, the high crime during the gang, due to gang violence. So, and the crack epidemic that was still going on at the time. So that's what it was more so to pertain to. But I do think that the some of the things that were implemented into it were far too harsh. It went over the line and it didn't incorporate anything for rehabilitation, which is the problem with the prison system today. There is nothing for rehabilitation for people who go to prison. They send them to jail, bring them out, wait till they violate, send them back in, bring them out, wait till they violate, send them in, and it's a revolving door. We all know about the school to prison pipeline system. So that's a government action in general. I don't see a positive line on the opposite side for it because, like I said, Republicans bought prisons. They bought into the school to prison pipeline system. They bought into it. They went and spent their money on prisons. Michael Jordan, the guy who they kept confusing the actual basketball player Michael Jordan with, who was actually a Republican from Indiana, not Indiana. Oh my God, what was it? Is it Minnesota? I can't think of what state he was from, but yeah, the guy was actually owned a bunch of prisons. He had already bought a bunch of individually owned prisons. He was a Republican. Most Republicans in the South own these prisons in the South. So when we talk about the prison system and who's kind of pushing the needle for that, you kind of can't just look at the Democrat Party for the most part. Like
it's not that
Nixon, Reagan, war on drugs. Bill Clinton, war on drugs. But George Bush also, war on drugs. So it's no real winner there. The only real winner in the situation is the fact that, the only thing that I can see winning in the situation is if black people actually come together more collectively and actually act as a real block inside of the Democrat Party. Then you develop more power.
So
but to actually remove, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So you're telling me that if, let's say, instead of it being 89 to 94% of black people voting Democrat, if this election, let's say it was 50-50. You're telling me that one, that wouldn't increase the probability of Republicans saying, okay, we're going to focus more on Black people now because we see we have a chance to win their vote. And two, it wouldn't hold Democrats more accountable to follow through on the promises that they make Black people?
Did it help with the last president? Did it help with Donald Trump? Did you see like things get better for Black people under Donald Trump? Did you see any type of drastic changes? Did you see reparations get passed? Did you see him even look at the notes for that? Because that came from, guess who that came? Guess who HR 40 comes from? HR 40 is the review for reparations. Guess who that comes from? Not a Republican. That comes from Black Democrats. So without Black Democrats in office, Black people don't have a push for anything Black anyway. So if you remove that Black presence from out of office, okay, you remove that the little bit of Black power that's already there. Not saying that it's a lot, not saying that it's enough to truly move a needle right now, because like I said, Black people are not unified in this country. Black Americans are not unified politically, economically, none of that. We still all, think on an individualist basis. So that's why it's hard to see progression, or hard to see fast progression for Black people in this country, because we don't stand on a unified front. Now,
let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. So you were saying that there's no diversity in the Republican Party, right? It's mainly just white people, in particular, older white people.
No, it's the vast majority white people, 90% white people. If not more, actually, I'd probably go a little bit more than 90% white people in the Republican Party, as far as people with power that hold positions.
So little diversity. Here's my thing.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's true, then why don't we see all the other minority groups voting in the same way that Black people vote? Because if there's not diversity for us and it's 90-something% white, there's not diversity for them. Why aren't they getting 90? Why isn't the Democrat Party getting 94% of their vote? And I think it's because they haven't been emotionally
I think that you're using that number a little twisted too, because you're thinking about 90 some odd percent of the Black people that vote.
Right.
Because you're not talking about 90 something percent of Black people. You're just talking about the percentage of people that do vote.
Thank you for correcting me. When I say that, I'm saying the people that vote, the Black people that vote, 89 to 94% of them vote Democrat.
Right.
The other groups of minorities, there's not that huge difference. It's not a complete just no chance 90-something%. They have some Republicans, they have some Democrats. And guess what? When you vote Republican, you're not shamed in the same way that you're shamed at being a Black person. And that's my issue.
Have you actually done studies on that? Because I hear a lot of y'all say that, because like I said, it's kind of a talking point, but I never really see any studies done as far as knowing how other races of people vote and what their voting is based on. I'm not sure about the Asian community and some of these other communities or whatnot. I'm not sure exactly how compacted they are. I know there's a lot of Mexican Americans in places like California. So
can I share something with you?
Sure.
So this is research by pewresearch.org. You can check that out. This breaks down the racial and ethnic divide in 2022 vote choice for U.S. House. We see right here, 41% white, 51% Republican, 93% Black for Democrat, 5% Republican, Hispanic, 60-39, pretty much 60-40. Asians, 68-32. So it's really only Black people that are voting so one-sided that it's not even close.
What is the history of voting in this country? Because that gives you your answer. I mean, when you look at and actually pay attention to the history of Black people voting in this country, that answers all of your questions on why you have such a large gap. I mean, you have such a large stance on one side. Previously, there was a very large and only stance on one side. You'd have had 100% of black people voting Republican immediately after emancipation.
And you think this is
But
healthy? This is a healthy political stance to take for the black community, to give one party 95% of your vote, even if we say the Republican
yes.
Party, we don't like them or whatever. You don't think it's smart to at least have a good percentage of us over there, seeing what's going on, seeing how we can take advantage of some of the ways that they do, the things they can do?
I think it's enough over there now. We can look at the people who are over there right now and see what they're doing.
You think
what is their fight? What is the black people that are over there on the Republican Party doing for black people? What are they saying for black people? What is Tim Scott saying for black people?
Of the vote. That's the thing.
No. Wait. We talking about being able to sway the vote. So if we talking about swaying the vote, then people have to have something to be swayed to. And right now, what I'm saying is Republicans don't have anything to be swayed to, because everything about their policies are anti-black, anti-poor, anti-education.
Anti-poor. So why are we thought of as poor? Why
we thought did we just not talk about the wealth gap and the national levels for black people income compared to other people's wages?
Talk about we can talk about why that is, because of single motherhood. Of course, your household income is likely going to be lower if there's only one person in the household. Would you agree with that two incomes are typically more than one?
Sure.
So, and this is what I see is like on the Republican side, the solutions are, hey, let's focus on the family, building up your family. But then the Democrats will take that.
Okay, pause that. What type of family man is Donald Trump? Let's look at examples. What type of family man is Donald Trump? What would you say? You say he's a great representative for a family, a man that's been married and divorced 3-4 times, several kids, all that type of stuff. You know, he's as far as his cheating, getting the scandals for cheating on your wife.
Policy, not the person.
Is any of that?
It matters
about the policy. Wait, you were just talking about morality, because you're talking about whether or not somebody stays married and the household is together and all that. So we talk about morality. That's not policy. You can't make a policy that forces people to be married.
No, what I'm talking about is this. Even if you had a cheater, if you had somebody that was a cheater, but he was in a household with a wife or whatever, a girlfriend, but there were two incomes and he's cheating on her, there's still two incomes. I'm focused on the two incomes. If there's two incomes and they're cheating and they're still together and there's two incomes, it still increases the income of the household.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not.
Okay, so what do you suggest, that black women stay in more toxic relationships, or black men for that matter, either one, black women or men should stay in more toxic relationships based on the income? Is that what you're saying? You're
assuming that I'm talking about toxic relationships. I'm just saying relationships that you're more likely to have a higher income with.
But how do you legislate that, brother? Like, you talking about a morality thing that you don't legislate. You can't legislate somebody's marriage. You can't put in the policy, hey, guys, you can't leave your husband or you can't leave your wife if you're unhappy with your marriage. That's not something that you can legislate. So I don't even understand why that is a political argument.
Right. But what happens on the reverse end is the legislation then incentivizes black women in particular to stay single, because they're incentivized to not have a man in the household, or they'll get taken off of the food stamps, the Medicaid, and all of the benefits.
So if the woman, cool bean, say welfare doesn't exist. Take away welfare. Then what do you do with those single mothers?
Then I think that they start making more rational decisions and say, okay, look, I need to prioritize finding me a husband and not be on Instagram twerking, not be sitting over here doing all of this degenerate stuff, but make myself the type of woman who can follow a man. Do you think the majority of those chicks are doing that for free? Like, you think they doing that for fun, or do you think they doing that in order to earn money? I think that some of them are doing it to earn money, but some of them are just doing it to do it because they want attention. These are
Now, you think Instagram, dancing on Instagram or twerking on Instagram is what ruins marriages?
That's one of the things. Social media is a huge problem. When you constantly have in your wife's or girlfriend's inbox, and she has access to men all over the country, and you're being compared to them. I mean, these are real issues. It sounds ridiculous, but these are.
I would have to see some numbers on that. Because I don't think that's, twerking on Instagram is the number one cause for divorce in this country for Black people.
I didn't say it was the number. I didn't say it was the number one cause. I was talking about a symptom among many other things which are contributing to the fact that Black women, only 1 in 4 of them get married, and they are the least likely to get married. And it's a problem.
So what about Black men? So what does that mean? What are the numbers for Black men getting married?
Black men don't have the same issue because they can go outside of the race, or they can.
So do the numbers say that Black men go outside of their race and stay with the women that they're with?
Black men have a better chance of getting remarried after they're already broken up. They do better in the dating market statistically than Black women.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would really have to see those statistics, because I wouldn't be able to give you just based on my experience. That's hard to fathom. But if you have numbers that say that, then I would have to go by those numbers. But right now, I really have to see those numbers in order to agree with that. That seems a little far fetched. But
I can share my screen and show you.
Okay,
right here. I just typed in Black men and women marriage rates. It says 34.4% of Black men were married in 2021 compared to 28.6% of Black women. So that's showing you that more Black men are married.
Okay, 6%. That's not really substantial, but I think that's really a close margin. But okay, still pretty low on both ends.
Right, and just because someone's not married doesn't mean that they're not in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But
and I think marriage is really like kind of less popular nowadays than it was prior.
Right. It's less popular, but what a different metric that could be used to show what I'm talking about is, I think around 75% of Black children live in a single parent household. The majority of those are single women. So,
and are the majority of those on welfare?
I don't think a majority of them are on welfare. I don't know the specific numbers of those, but what I'm saying is the policies that are targeted towards Black people typically are centered around welfare, and we're not going to cut your benefits off. And
where though? But that's not even what that report said, and the White House report that you showed said. Like you cutting up a clip of that and then saying, well, that's what they centering everything around, when it's really not. Like, it's a lot of stuff about HBCUs, there's a lot of stuff about healthcare, there's a lot of stuff about a lot of different things. So why would you say it's only centered when it comes to Black people? It's only centered around welfare when it's not, though.
Because this is the fact sheet that they're using to say what they're doing for Black people.
Right, but it's only, you talking about one space where they say that we're increasing benefits. So, like, how does that make it a centerpiece for the entire article?
Have you heard when a political person from the Democrat Party comes out and says what they're going to do? What are reparations? That's a form of welfare.
Is it really? You really think? Well, hold on, wait.
Government
you said, wait.
The government giving you isn't welfare.
Oh my God!
Wait. Is the government giving you money, is that considered welfare or not?
It's not. It's not. It's not. Oh. It's not. What was welfare created for, sir? Can you tell me the history of welfare? Can you tell me when it first started and what it was created for?
One sec, I'm reading this.
Okay, well, let me break it down. Um, it was created for white women who were widows of war. Um, it was not created for black people. When we talk about the image of the welfare queens, that was something that was brought up by Ronald Reagan in order to further stigmatize poor black people. So I'm trying to understand, how would you confuse welfare, which has nothing to do with a reparation? Reparation is not a welfare. It's not something to help people out. Reparations is what was owed. It's a repair factor for what was already owed. Black people have already done the work for reparations. There's nothing else that needs to be done. Did you say that Native Americans needed to do something for reparations when they got it? Did Jews need to do something for reparations when they got it and we didn't have nothing to do? Like, should my tax money go to reparations for Jews instead of reparations for people like myself? I don't understand that logic in saying that reparations is welfare when it's not being used in that same sense when it comes to other people who reparations have been given to. Why is it just welfare for black people?
So let me explain why it's just welfare. And I'm not even saying it's just welfare for black people. I'm just using this example. What I'm saying is that the Democrat Party has a history of incentivizing black people to stay on welfare so that we keep voting for them. And I think
How?
the
Who?
reparation argument.
I mean, you would have to tell me, who are you talking about that incentivize welfare for black people? Like, which president, which
Look at
mayor, which congressman, like who made the speech to say, hey,
if
black people, I got more welfare for you if you just vote for me?
because look at what I just said. Your income, your household income is more likely to increase when you have a two-parent household or just a two-person household if you don't even have kids. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're on welfare, you're incentivized to stay on welfare
You're
because
not, though. That's not true.
that
It's
is
not true at all. When
have
you're on welfare, if you get food stamps right now, you have to prove that you're working, or they won't give you the food stamps in some cases. Like, they incentivize you to get a job. They
no,
even decrease in some states, they even decrease the amount that you get based on the time that you've been on them if you have not been actively searching for a job.
that's why I
So
said they incentivize you to stay on them because what ends up happening is people on welfare, and I know this because my family, a lot of my family and people that I grew up with, they run the play, for lack of better words, they run the play on the welfare system. They taught me how to do it. I don't do it, but I know how to do it. This is
on the
something that,
welfare system, oh,
yeah,
okay. Which parts of the welfare system
let
are
me,
they finessing? Housing, food stamp,
all of it. I'll
they
break it.
all of it. Okay,
I'll break it
okay.
down.
Now, okay. Now, if they're able to finesse it in any way, shape, or form, then that means they have they can't report any type of income. Okay, and
Not
even in that sense, okay, let me help you out. Even in that sense, okay, you still live in a below standard lifestyle. Your lifestyle is not increased because you're on welfare or food stamps. That
but
does
that's
not give you a foot up on society because you're able to eat food. I
exactly.
don't understand why you think like somebody would want to do that.
And
What
here,
people will want to say, you know what? I don't want anything better in life. I just want, I just want this. This is all I really want.
because put yourself in their position. Okay. Here you are, you're a single mother. You didn't go to college, you don't have a trade, and you're getting food stamps. Now, if you get a raise at your job or you get a better job, the money that you now get doesn't necessarily go to your pocket because now you have to start paying health care. Now you have to start paying for food out of pocket. Now there are other things that you have to start paying for out of pocket. And when you add it,
Mm-hmm.
the raise that you got may be the same or just a little bit more than what
Mm-hmm.
you were getting on welfare. And on top of that,
Mm.
when it comes to the tax season, because you
Okay.
made more, you're not
What's
getting
the,
as much back in your
okay,
income.
okay, pause right there. What's the solve for that? Because okay, now that you brought that up, okay, because the Democrats are pushed for a higher minimum wage. The Republicans were against higher minimum wage. So help me understand how me voting Republican would then benefit those people that actually do make a low wage salary, that are dependent on food stamps and things like that in order to eat, because you can't live off of $10 an hour. Okay, which is not even the minimum wage. Minimum wage here in Georgia is $7.75.
Okay.
$7.75. Can you name a place in America where you can live off of $7.75 an hour, 40-hour weeks?
Minimum wage jobs aren't meant for adults who need to live. They're meant for
What?
they're meant for people entering the workforce who have no skill set or have a low skill set. Minimum wage job.
So okay, so if you have a low skill set, then you don't deserve it just because. So if you work at McDonald's, that means you have a low skill set. So that means you shouldn't be allowed to earn a living wage, is what you're telling me right now, right?
No, you earn a living wage by gaining a skill set and then getting paid more. Because what ends up happening, we like to say,
Okay.
just let's
So,
raise
sir, wait. So can everybody in the store be the manager? Can everybody in the store make managerial wage, or do a
Everyone,
lot of people end up stuck in that same workforce
you don't end up
for a
stuck
very, very long time? Well, you do end up stuck, sir, because not the vast majority of people in this country cannot all be at the same level of employment. So therefore, it is not possible. Knowing any type of economics, you know that it's not possible for everyone to level up, as you say. It's not possible.
I'm not saying everyone's the manager, but what I am saying is it's nuanced. So for instance, let's take the minimum wage job example, right? You said minimum wage was what, 7.75?
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think you need to make an hour to be able to get a decent place and put some food in your stomach? The bare
Approximately around $20
so
minimum.
around
20 to 25 minimum. Yeah.
Okay.
In today's market,
Is that
definitely.
with children or without children?
Without. That's by yourself.
So without children. So just to give you some background, just because minimum wage is a certain amount doesn't mean that that's what people are paying. But let's say that that's what they're paying. They're paying minimum wage. Okay. If you're working a minimum wage job, then you need to understand the position that you're in and try to get out of it as quick as possible. Not say, how can I stay here and then have the government support me? So even if you are,
okay, so what do you do in the meantime? What are you doing in the meantime in order to eat, support yourself, pay your bills, make sure you're going about living life the right way, as everybody would like for you to do? What do you do in the meantime? Because that is a process that not everybody has the advantage or the privilege of being able to walk through.
I'll tell you exactly what you do because I did it. What you do is you humble yourself, you lower your standard of living, you get a roommate, or you get 2 or 3 roommates who are also working a minimum wage job or something like that, or they don't even have to be working. Just get you somewhere where you're sharing expenses with people and you grind that phase of your life out. And in the meantime, you come up with a plan to gain a skill set to make the income that would get you out of that situation.
Okay. Do you know how many people live in poverty in this country, sir?
Tell me how many people. Because you
Millions.
said, okay,
there are millions of people in poverty in this country. So if it was that simple and that easy, you know what? Hey, just roommate together, and that I understand you tend to like to make a lot of things about you in particular and just you. I don't think that you're very well rounded with as far as speaking to other people outside of your personal
I'm not used to
situation.
don't take
But
accountability because I just gave
I talked to
I gave you a solution, and your thing was, well, everyone can't do that. Well, I'm not saying
because it's not logical that
it is
because you're
logical
not
to go and get
speaking
roommates. It's logical to go and get if you're
right.
telling me
Right.
it's not logical to go
It's
and get
the
roommates.
how, sir, sir.
What's
Sir,
logical? Waiting on Joe
do
Biden
you
to
do
pass
you
a bill
do you
or going out and getting a roommate? Wait on Joe Biden to pass a bill so that I can have more money, or go and
Joe
ask
Biden pass a
people
bill?
if they'll be my roommate. I'm talking about taking personal accountability, like you said earlier, and saying, I only make minimum wage. Do I wait on the government to fix my situation, or do I
Right,
do
sir. But
my
my issue is that okay, I get where you're coming from, but to end things for the people that do not have the who do not have the fortune that you may have had,
I didn't have
or that I may have had.
that's not
I
what
don't. Paul, 1 second, just 1 second. I think instead of thinking that everybody can do exactly what you did and it's going to work for everyone, that is not really a logical thought process.
is
I think
welfare.
that's your individual. I think as an individual, you may have done something well for yourself, and I'm not mad at you because I beat a lot of odds myself. So I'm not saying that it's not possible for people in order to beat odds. What I am saying is that I'm not willing to eradicate the things that help people who are not in the position that or who are not as fortunate as I was to have the opportunities that I had in order to correct my situation. I'm not going to penalize them because I was able to make it out.
It's not
That's what I
it's
it
not
is. It is when you support a party that wants to eradicate something that helps poor people. I don't understand how that's not a negative to, like, I don't know how that's not a thing that you consider.
I think that you're fundamentally misunderstanding what I stand for. And what I'm saying is I'm more solution based, and it seems like you're more how
I'm a
can
solutionist.
well, so then
No,
when I
no,
do a solution, you don't celebrate it. You say, well, everyone can't do that. Well,
well,
everyone can't be on
exactly.
welfare either. Everyone
Because your solution is not a solution based on thinking for the people. You're thinking about yourself and what you were able to do. So
thinking
you're
about
saying because I was able to do it, then you should be able to do it too,
do you
while
have
not noticing or understanding that everyone's situation is not the same.
do you have
Everyone's circumstances is not the same. So
do you have
therefore they won't have the same outcomes that you
do you have
have,
do you
but
have
the
children or
opportunity
anyone
should
that
still be there.
do you have
I'm
children
sorry.
or do you have children or anyone that looks up to you like that would come to you for advice?
I have a full family, brother. I'm married to my wife about 7, 8 years now. I have 3 beautiful children.
So let me ask you this. Okay, I don't know if you have a son or a daughter, but
Both.
if
One
okay,
son, 2 daughters.
let's say that you have your son comes to you when he's 18. He says, "Hey, Dad, I don't have. I'm working this minimum wage job. What should I do? Here are my options. I can wait for the government to give me money, or I can go get a couple roommates and live with them, grind this period of my life out while I maybe go to college part time and do this and do that and get out of this situation." What do you tell him to do out of those options?
Both. Both.
Get on welfare and then grind it out,
If,
right?
both if necessary. If I have an adult son that
Mhm.
is out in the world making things happen for himself, he has to understand, just like I have to understand, that things that worked for me may not work for him. So therefore he has to know that out here in this world you have to figure it out, and my son actually knows that. So in order for, if he gets into a situation to where he needs to depend on or he need, because number one, work ethic is always my priority. That's always my big thing, is pushing work ethic. So if your work ethic is there and you still need a foot up in the game, then yes, depend on your taxes, depend on the things that your tax money pay for, that are there for you when you need it, like those things. because they are not free. They're not something that the government is just sitting on your lap. You pay for those things. We pay for those things as taxpayers. So yes, I would want my son or my daughter, whoever, to take advantage of those situations if they possibly can, in order to get by and survive until that time comes up to where you talking about, you can get that raise at your job and all of that, because that's a process that doesn't happen instantly and that doesn't happen overnight. So until that happens, something you have to eat. So I don't want my son out there robbing people in order to get something to eat. I would rather him go to the DFACS or Department of Welfare, whatever it is, and say, hey, I need food stamps. Can I have, is it possible for me to get $100 worth of food stamps, $200 worth of food stamps in order to survive, instead of going out here putting a gun to somebody's head and taking it?
Now, here's where I think we have a point of agreement, because what you just said, I 100% agree with. A hand up instead of a handout. I have no problem with somebody getting food stamps while they're in a temporary situation and having a plan for getting out of that situation. And you're on them for a year or two, you pay your taxes, and then as you make more, you pay into the system and somebody else gets help. I have no issue with that. As a matter of fact, when I was in college, I had food stamps. I was on Medicaid. It was a temporary situation, and I benefited from those. Here's the difference, though. If I was in college and they cut those food stamps off and they cut the Medicaid off, I wouldn't sit back and look at myself as a victim. I wouldn't feel entitled to those benefits. I would say it's my responsibility to make sure I'm fed. I should have never put myself in the position to even need to go somewhere else. I need to do better. That's what I'm talking about when I say accountability, is that all of this other stuff is too unpredictable. So why would I create a mindset to where I now feel entitled to something that I can't even control? I can control what I do over here. But
that's what I'm saying. I don't understand how you can use that word entitlement when it comes to anything political or anything that's dealing with any type of jurisdiction of policy or government, because we pay taxes on everything. Your tax money goes somewhere to benefit you when you need it. So why would you then take away that benefit? For what reason? Where would that money be going? Like, where will we transfer? We get rid of welfare. We get rid of Social Security. We get rid of all the things that you guys call welfares or handouts. Okay, we get rid of all of those. Where the money go?
And I want to be clear, I'm not saying get rid of them. I'm specifically talking about a mindset that says this is not something I should depend on. If it's there, it's cool, it's nice, but this is where my focus is at. Am I going to go out and fight for food stamps? No. Am I going to go out and give me no. If it's there,
that's what I'm saying though, bro. Like what you're saying though is like just think about being a black person hearing what you're saying right now, because you're saying that like black people are out with picket signs talking about I want my food stamps right now. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen those type of situations where people get cut off and they actually need their food stamps, and the reason they're picketing saying they need their food stamps is because their family's starving. They trying not to tell their son to go out and rob the liquor store so they can go get some bread and something to put in the refrigerator. So these are things that I talk, because like once you start to neglect the impoverished, then you have to expect a rise in crime. It's just inevitable.
And
it's going to happen. So once you start, so as you neglect poor people, you cannot be mad at poor people for eventually turning that hunger into rage and eventually coming for yours and coming for mine. So in order to appease that, in order to calm that down, I would rather make it to where working people, whether they work at McDonald's, whether they work, as long as you working, you should make a livable wage. You should be able to have housing. You should be able to have food. You should be able to have water, electricity. the common things that are needed in order to survive on a on a regular basis. Not saying that you should be getting a check for Gucci shoes. Not saying that you should be getting an incentive for a new Cadillac. I'm not saying any of that. I'm speaking specifically for the impoverished. Things that people that I look up to, like Dr. Martin Luther King, stood for, which is for the impoverished people. Not only did he stand for black people, but he stood for poor people. So that's that. I've also made that part of my goal in my life to uplift and help as many poor people as I possibly can get out of poverty. So the things that you're talking about, that you're saying that black people should be held accountable for, I'm actually out there showing people ways to account for that.
So when
I'm
I
actually
solution, like I did earlier about getting roommates, would that fall in line with me trying to help black people? Maybe that is in that
sure,
situation.
if you set up a, maybe if you had a program situated for like housing, to where, maybe you had an apartment complex or something, you invested in an apartment complex, and you made that available for people to do, for poor people to have a place where they can go and have housing, temporary housing or whatever, so they could get on their feet. Programs for them to actually learn something, a higher type of education, or a specific trade, because like I said, everybody can't work can't be the blue shirt, everybody can't be the white collar guy with the big desk. So in order for people to work and actually feel like they're accomplishing something, you have to actually give them a livable wage. That way, you reduce a lot of the crime, you reduce a lot of the ignorance and the people that don't want to, or the lack of work ethic. You actually make those things possible. When people go into McDonald's, instead of you going in there and you getting attitudes from people all day because they can't afford nothing when they get off, they got to steal food from the job and all that. So, like, instead of having that, you pay them a livable wage, you get great service. So it's a difference in the way people act based on the opportunities that they have in front of them. Once a person feels like they don't have an opportunity, they give up. Everything is out the window. And anything can happen at that point. Either they become extremely homeless, or they get bad on drugs. They choose, the easy way out, try to go use drugs and stay high all the time. Or in some cases, they turn to crime because they refuse to live. They refuse to continue that poor lifestyle. They'd rather go to prison and at least have 3 hots in the cot before they sit out here and just, freeze in the cold. So they'll go out here and commit a crime in order to feed themselves or to get by for the time being or momentarily. But then you create a repetitive thing. It becomes a repetitive thing because after that little bit run out, you got to go do it again, and you got to go do it again. And then that becomes all that you know as that individual, as a person who, or a young person especially, who's committing these crimes. That becomes all you know. All I know how to do is sell drugs. All I know how to do is steal cars. All I know how to do is because those are the only opportunities put in front of you. So although I do feel like there are rare cases, few compared to just impoverished cases where people just stupid. I mean, she's just dumb. I mean, just doing stupid shit. I mean, excuse my language, but yeah, just doing stupid stuff. And that's what you're going to get from being stupid. Some people do deserve to be, what I'm saying, locked up or whatever the situation may be. But that's not the case for the majority of people. And it's definitely not the case for the numbers that we're seeing right now in prisons across the country.
No.
Sorry for being long-winded.
So, and I know you had told me before we got on that you got to get to work in the morning. So we've been on almost 2 hours, but I wanted to just kind of give you my background a little bit so you understand where I'm coming from and why I think the way that I think. And then if you have any more questions or other topics, we can kind of go into those and I'll let you guide when we get off. But my background, I grew up in poverty. And most of the people that were around me grew up in poverty. And out of those people, I'm one of few that made it out. Most of those people are still in poverty. And the reason that I made it out is not because of the opportunities that were put in front of me. It was because the opportunities that I went out and created and took advantage of in my mindset. It was me sitting down and saying, nobody's going to change my situation but me. And I have to be 100% accountable for whatever results there are, good, bad, or ugly. And that mindset is what got me out of it. It wasn't the government gave us more food stamps. The government gave us this. We're poor. They gave us that. Did they cut it? It wasn't that. As a matter of fact, it was, I don't want to live like this. And I have to take accountability and responsibility 100%. And if I say, oh, well, I grew up poor and I was in poverty and boo-hoo, it makes for a good sob story, but it doesn't put food in my family's mouth. And the only way I'm going to get out of this if I take accountability. And that's what I try to preach. So all of my solutions have to do with what I'm in control of, what I can do. I don't have time to wait for Joe Biden, for Trump, for anybody. What I was talking about with Donald Trump and voting for him was on a macro level and just saying, we don't really get much from Democrats. Let's try something different. See how it works out. But I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I think both are racist in their own way. But I have a particular issue with Democrats because we give them so much of our time, resources, and energy. And I don't feel like we get what we should be getting for that. If you told me that it was 50-50, 50% Republican, Democrat, maybe I could understand. But 95% of us voting for one party, and we're not closer to a reparations type of deal. We're not closer to some of the other things that they promised, prison reform, all of those things. And every time it doesn't work out, they say it's because of Republicans. I don't buy it. For 95% of the vote, we need more than we're getting. And that was my whole point with saying that. I'm not a Republican. To be honest, I didn't even know what Democrats and Republicans were until I was in college. I just knew Democrats wore blue and Republicans wore red. And I always related it back to Bloods and Crips and all the conspiracies behind why that is the way it is. But I'm more of like a solution-based person, like it seems like you are. And whoever, regardless of what happened in the past, whoever's coming with the best deal now and who I think, from a strategic standpoint, we could take advantage of. I don't like the way the Democrat Party's going on a lot of levels. LGBTQ stuff, some of the stuff that they're pushing on children. I'm not with that. So that's the main reason that I kind of started looking more into the Republican Party, because they were standing out against those things. I'm not sending my kid to no school where they're learning that you could be a boy if you're a girl. I'm not trying to do all that. And I don't see I don't see Democrats speaking out against that. That's an issue that's near and dear to me. And so all the other stuff, the CRT, I could deal with that. But when I'm sending my kid to your school and you're telling them all this stuff about that, that's where I get uncomfortable. And right now, the party that's standing against that is the Republican Party. So that would be the main reason that I would personally throw my support behind them, is for that.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, yeah, I definitely need to go to bed. I'm gonna end with just a brief about myself. I've been voting since the year 2000. I like I said, I grew up impoverished also. So like I said, single mother for the majority of my life. My mother was also a police officer and also a desk clerk for the police department. And what spent me, I've only voted Republican once in my life, and that was for George W. in his second term. I didn't vote for him in his first term. I did vote for him in the second term because we were in Afghanistan at that point, and I felt like he needed to finish his own work. I voted for Obama twice. Very, very, very proud moment. That actually was a life-changing moment for me personally. I know a lot of people talk pretty down on Obama or whatever, but for me personally, it was actually a life-changing moment, and it was actually a moment that pointed me in a better direction as far as what I thought that we were capable of as Black people. So it was a positive moment for me, and I think it turned my life around and made me start thinking about things in a positive manner. Stop looking at people who look like me as my enemy. Um, so it's I think representation in those type of places, and especially for Black people. I think that young people in general, seeing Black people in powerful positions, doing positive things, doing great things, I think definitely has an impact on us. Um, Currently, me and my wife actually have nonprofits. Um, One Young Black Excellence, and we also do nonprofits in Atlanta for
You have
Confident Woman ATL. I'm sorry.
you have a website?
Yes, we have a website, Confident Woman. Right? Confident Woman going. Yeah. MyConfidentWoman.org is one that's ran by my sister Stacy Hill, and Unify YBE .us is the Young Black Excellence platform. But we
YBE?
yes, Unify YBE
YBE.
.us.
.us. Okay, Unify.
Yes.
And can you see the screen right now?
Cannot. I can't.
Okay, because I put the myconfidentwoman.org.
Okay, yeah, no, I see that. I see it. I see you. Yeah. So, but we do a lot of, we try to help the community as much as I can, man. Like I said, I come from the community. I come from the trenches of the community, the roughest parts, and so me and my family always try to take time in order to go back and try to give to the community that I was fortunate enough to be able to move out of. You know what I'm saying? Some of the poor sections of Atlanta. So it's our goal. We try to make it a goal to actually go back in the community, uplift people, try, especially kids. You know what I mean? We try to focus on kids and try to give them a better outlook in order to have something to look up to. I push a lot of political awareness, try to get people to at least start to research politics, not necessarily push aside or so. Even if I vote, whether I vote Republican or Democrat or whatever, I'm not loyal to either side. I'm an independent. I consider myself an independent also, or independent voter. So I vote based on anything that I feel like helps or negatively affects Black people. Everything I do is based on how it motivates or helps Black people. Hopefully too many people won't see that as racist, but I won't really care. But my focus is on Black people. I love my people. I love Black people in this country, and like I said, I'm Pan-African, so I also love my African brothers and sisters on the continent, and all around the diaspora. So with that said, I appreciate you, brother, because you really didn't have to have this conversation with me. You are actually the first black um, black independent that slides Republican that was actually willing to have a conversation and have a decent conversation with no yelling back and forth, no cuss words, no none of that. You were very, very intelligible, and I enjoyed this conversation. So I appreciate you. And I, even though I don't agree with your politics, you know what I mean? I do hope that you keep doing what you're doing, man. And one day we'll go back over this again, especially some of that stuff you brought up. We could talk about a lot of that stuff and actually look up some of the, some of the information on that stuff. So, and maybe have a little argument,
I'm with it.
about those topics in the future.
I'll tell you what, and I'm gonna leave this video up too. I plan on growing this channel. It's not big now, but mark my words, in the next 2 to 3 years, it's gonna be a lot bigger channel. And you're the actually, outside of my friend that came on that was in the video, you're my first guest on. So in 2 or 3 years, when the channel's million subscribers big, I'm up there. I want you to come back on, and I'll do the shout out with the nonprofits and whatever you have going on, and we can hash it out again. And people will be like, "Who's this guy? How'd he get on here? How he,
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
That's me holding myself accountable, saying like, okay, now I gotta grow this so that we can have that moment where it's like, here's my first guest full circle moment. We're coming back, another argument, but on a bigger stage, more people watching, and it should be fun.
Definitely, I would definitely be sharing this video, to the people I know, because like I said, I like these type of discussions, even if we on two different planes as far as our politics. It's good that we can have these discussions. It's good for us as Black people to have these discussions where we agree and where we disagree on, so that way we can meet in the middle and try to find out how we can progress forward together, regardless of what political party we want to be with.
Right, exactly. Have you read W.E.B. Du Bois?
I definitely have.
Okay, good. Because he's
Definitely Pan African. I love Pan Africans, man. Anybody Pan African, I love to death, man. WEB, Julius Malema, Kwame Ture, Kwame Nkrumah. I'm big on anything Pan African. Anybody who's pro unified Black people.
great. Yeah, because I've studied Pan-Africanism. I consider myself a Pan-Africanist, believe it or not. I believe what should be done for Black people has to be done by Black people. I have no problem saying I'm for the Black community first. And I think that's why I say I don't consider myself a Republican, because many Republicans wouldn't agree with that, or they would dislike me because they would consider me a nationalist or something like that. But I am for Black people first. I have no problem saying that. And yeah, I enjoyed the conversation, and we'll have to do this again. And hopefully I see you in the comments and everything and future content and stuff. Keeping me, letting me know.
Man, look. Hey, without a doubt, man. I already, like I said, I'm subscribed to the channel, man. So I'm a definitely be keeping my eyes on you. So, what I mean? Keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing. But, expect me to be there in that chat, bro. I am going to be there.
Yeah, you need to say some stuff that have me up at 11 o'clock at night thinking like,
Oh, I got you. I'm gonna drop some stuff on you, man. I promise you, I'm gonna drop something on you, man. But yeah, definitely, man. Let me get ready for bed, man. But
right.
One love to you, brother. And like I said, salute to you, and I hope the best for the channel, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, brother.
All right. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate everyone that watched. That was a great discussion. I want to do more of these. We definitely need more discussions, and I enjoy it. And for him to come up and take time out of his Tuesday night, he has work in the morning, I have stuff I'm doing. It's like it's a special moment, and I appreciate all the support. And at the end of the day, we all want progress. We all want different things. Sometimes there's different solutions, and I'm all for it. I'm with whoever wants to help Black people. And with that being said, if you have not subscribed or liked or done something to support the channel, make sure you do that. I am a personal development coach. That's kind of why I have the mindset I have. Is I'm more focused on how you as an individual can change your situation. If there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. But I'm gonna do a lot of thinking about what he said, reevaluate some of the ideas that I have, and maybe there's some things that I can move a little bit on and try to look at them from a different perspective. Lifelong learner, appreciate all the support, and I'll see y'all next time.